laid out. It's a president who is incapable of not just staying on message, but staying above the fray and sort of letting him, looks like by all accounts he is going to get to appoint the justice who he wants to appoint. It will be his third appointment to the Supreme Court in just one term. As he himself bragged to Bob Woodward, that's stunning. It's very lucky for a president to get that much, and he can't even resist not battling with the late Justice Ginsburg's granddaughter, right? I mean, he says, and he will say, he views himself as a counter-puncher, but to view Ruth Bader Ginsburg's sort of final fervent wish as some sort of punch is not how just about anyone else in this country would interpret it. But once the president injects that into the dialogue, it becomes something that then his aides and his team sort of feel like they have to defend or explain away or try to manage or handle. And I was talking to someone today, and they were speaking about this, but they're also speaking in more general, and they said, look, the president is good when he's connecting with his key voters. He can be politically incorrect and freewheeling, and that's appealing. He is not good when he is attacking people personally, when he's being derogatory and dismissive, and that's exactly what this was.
You know, Kim, just to follow up on Ashley's analysis, it is a pattern. It's as clear as we've been talking about this pattern of being subservient to Vladimir Putin. The only equally publicly documented pattern that's as clear and as disturbing is his fights with people who are grieving, with the Khan family after they spoke out at Hillary Clinton's convention, with the widow of one David T. Johnson, calling soldiers losers and suckers. I mean, he takes people, either vulnerable people or people at their most vulnerable moment, and kicks them in the face.
Yes, not to mention all the things that he said about John McCain, both when he was alive and after he passed away. This is absolutely a pattern for this president. And, you know, Ashley makes an important point. This is a win for him. The Senate is going to usher through this pick, by all accounts. There's really nothing that Democrats can do to stop them. And so there is no reason for him to punish. This is actually a moment for him, if he really chooses to take it, to be respectful at a time when the nation is for justice, as well as belief that she will lie at the Capitol and at the court. That would be a great moment for him, but he can't resist lashing out at anything he sees.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hiya.
Hello, hello.
What are you knitting, Margie?
I'm making a shawl with pockets.
Okay.
A scarf that has pockets.
Okay.
These are the pockets.
Okay. You're making pockets.
I make the pockets first, and then I make the shawl.
Okay. How you doing, Robert?
Not bad, all considered. You look like you're dressed for work.
For work?
For work or for Yontif.
I did go to a client today. I just had to pick up mail. I had to go to Queens to pick up mail. It's cold.
Aren't you lucky?
Aren't I lucky? I am lucky. Thank God I have a little work. It's very tight.
Yeah.
Very tight.
Well, you know, for me, my work hasn't changed.
It didn't change too much, huh?
Yeah, I'm still retired.
Yeah,
Still
same
retired.
here. Same here.
Yeah, I didn't retire yet.
Yeah, well,
Although I'm going to be 64 and a half next week.
Kananahara.
Once you're a senior, though, you're a senior all, what did you say, Richard?
64 and a half? You count?
64 and a half. Yeah, I count.
Well, that's when you have to get the Medicare going. You have to put in the paperwork.
I think they said 3 months before.
Yeah, oh, 3 months, okay.
Yeah.
You can do it all online, I think, too.
Sometimes, if you get
What's
lucky.
the story with supplemental programs?
Oy.
Amazed.
Hello.
Yeah, how do you figure that out?
Ask for help.
Hello.
Carefully.
Once you get into one, you can't get out? Is that it?
No, there's opportunities to do that, but you have to look for when they occur.
I'm nervous. I'm a nervous patient.
I got mine through my union, so I just did that.
It's better than being an impatient.
It's much better than being an inpatient. I hope I never have to be I've already spent almost a year of my life inpatient.
Oh, don't do that.
I
Not
hope I
fun.
never have to go to the
Rabbi
hospital
Joe,
again.
good afternoon.
Huh?
Good afternoon,
Hi, Rabbi
everybody.
Joe.
Oh, there you
Rabbi, I'd
go.
like to, this is our next to last class, and we are very happy that you're with us this evening, and we understand that this is going to be perhaps an unusual shiur tonight. That's all I can say. That's my introduction.
Wow.
When is it a usual shiur?
No spoiler alert, Jeff.
Is it
I
ever
won't say-
usual?
I won't say anything else.
Okay.
Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you not staying with us, Jeff?
I am definitely staying. I'm just saying goodbye, that I'm not going to stop. I'm going to stop.
Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, a spoiler might have already been given partially with the email which went out today. It was given its own unique title compared to what we usually have. Jeff, we normally wait until 5:35, right?
Okay. We can begin now. Time's a wasted.
Sorry?
Time's a wasted.
Well, you know, we're Jewish, so we
Okay, you would like a little more time. That's fine.
we like to give allow that. Yeah, I'm just gonna get myself a glass of water,
Okay.
and then we can begin.
Good. Hello, Amy. I don't think Amy is. How many people do we have today? Ooh, 11. Good.
Hello to whoever said hi to me. I
Hi,
apologize.
it's me, Amy.
Hi, how
Hi.
are you?
We didn't get a chance to speak, so I'm
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Remember.
It's so great to be here.
Something very unusual happened today. I received in the mail from a member of the shul from years ago letters that she received from the Rabbi Singer, who was the rabbi until the year 2000. Letters of thank you for this contribution in his handwriting. And, you know, we had none of those kind of letters in our archives. So it was really wonderful to receive. And this was there's a picture of him in our Beit Medrash, and, you know, is a Hasidic guy with beard and payas and his handwriting is so super, it's in a beautiful script, American, you know, English script that you would never have thought that he could have done. It was just it was wonderful to receive it. I think I'm going to display a few of these in the shul, so you'll get to see it.
Who's this from?
This is from the Rabbi Singer, the former rabbi before Akiva Hertzfeld. Okay.
Jonathan Boyarin, formerly of this parish, sent me a little while ago a speech he gave at Columbia, in which he had really wonderful description of Rabbi Singer and some of his practices. Very, very, very beautiful.
Would you forward that to me?
I should probably ask him for permission because I don't think it's published or anything, but happily.
Oh, I see. Okay, would you? That'd be nice.
Yeah. Very happily.
I can ask him myself.
Okay, so should we begin?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, this is not a normal shiur. In fact, it's not even actually a shiur at all. We're going to be doing something altogether different. It is something that Karina and I have run for the last 5 years, each year at this time, during the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We find it to be extremely impactful. We have only ever done it with our students at NYU, so people in their early 20s, really, for the most part. And already these classes, specifically a comment of Richard a number of weeks ago, drew my attention to the, when you think about it, quite obvious, but genuinely very interesting idea that obviously we all change with age, and at different stages in our lives, different things feel more appropriate or not. So I'm very interested, slightly nervous, not too nervous, to try this with a different demographic. Of course, you are all very young and very youthful. Please don't misunderstand me as saying that, saying otherwise, of course. But I think the average age is a bit above 22. Here.
A little bit above. Thank God.
It's a workshop, a teshuvah workshop. Essentially, the idea is as follows: that I have been there, and I imagine very many people have been there, that you get to shul on Yom Kippur, or perhaps in this year and instance, you get to your own sofa on Yom Kippur, and you open up the Machzor, the prayer book, and you think to yourself, gosh, I am completely unprepared for this. I haven't done any, I might have listened to shiurim, but in terms of actually thinking about preparing myself for what the themes of the day are, I haven't done any of that. So that's the idea of what this is. The central part of it is a journaling exercise, or a form of journaling, in which everybody takes pen and paper and responds to a few prompts, writing answers only for their own consumption, I guess, their own consumption and that of God in heaven, but not for anyone else. I did say to Jeff, do you think people are okay with something a bit more experiential? To which Jeff responded, we are the quintessential experiential community. So I think that definitely sounds like a green light. I'm seeing the thumbs up, Margie. So I'll take that. We're going to divide it into 3 parts. The first part is a little bit of Torah. Not long, just to taste, maybe 5-7 minutes, in order to get a sense of Torah. Something we would make a Birkat Torah over. That's going to be part 1. Part 2 is, I find, this is perhaps personal, I find a very good way to sort of move into a different mindset is actually to listen to some music. And I have found a lot of Israeli music to be exceptionally spiritually articulate on many themes, which it's hard to find similar expression elsewhere. So I've got a couple of pieces that I'm going to share, and we can have a bit of discussion over. And then the last, third and final part will be the journaling. So let's begin. The Torah. Now, I'm teaching this piece on the very specific request of Richard. A number of weeks ago, it came up in a conversation in this class, whether or not is teshuvah about change, right? About sort of, about becoming something else. Or is it actually in some ways not quite as binary as that. And Richard suggested this might be something to do with age, sort of thinking about it in a different way. Now, the following is a Hasidic piece. I have to say at the outset, I find this piece to be rather disturbing. It doesn't sit with me particularly comfortably, but I do find it to be definitely very fascinating and provocative. Let me begin with the piece of Gemara, the piece of Talmud that the source is working from. I'll just say it over verbally. The Gemara in Masechet Yoma, Tractate Yoma, which is the part of the Talmud which deals with Yom Kippur, attributes a statement to one of the rabbis, Reish Lakish, as follows. He says, Gedolah Teshuvah, how wonderful, how great is Teshuvah, Shezedonot Na'asot Lo Kezechuyot. A person's intentional sins are not simply discounted, not simply forgotten or considered to have been unintentional, but are actually zechuyot, they are actually merits. A person's intentional sins through the process of teshuvah become merits, which is a trippy idea, a very, very wacky idea. Okay, just to like sort of speak it out in the obvious sense, you know, the things that you've done wrong in the past actually become counted for you. Teshuvah doesn't mean that Hashem forgets about them. They actually in some way contribute positively to who you are. Now this phrase can be thought about and is thought about very richly in many different ways. You can find multiple interpretations of it. And it's a very rich one to be thinking with. That's our starting point. We're going to look at a piece of Rav Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. I apologize. This is the first time I think I have not translated it, but I will translate it as we go along, and perhaps I'll type as well. Very short, you'll see. We're not even going to read all of it. Is the screen big enough for people to see?
Yes.
Okay. Says Rav Tzadok, Ikar HaTeshuvah, the heart of Teshuvah, Ad Shi'ir Hashem Einav, where God illuminates your eyes, Sheyihu Zedonot Kezechuyot, to transform one's intentional sins into merits. Rotzeh lomar, this is to say, Sheyakir v'yavin, that a person discerns and understands, Shekol ma shechata, anything which they sinned, any fault, any mistake they made, anything which they prefer not to be the case, Hayagam ken beratzon Hashem yitbarach, was also with God's will, God's intent. Ain't that something?
I love it.
You love it?
I do.
I want to hear, Judy, give me a second. I want to hear. What does teshuvah mean? Says Rav Tzadok, real, full teshuvah. How to transform zedonot into zechuyot, to transform sins into merits, to understand that whatever happened, that was also part of God's plan.
It's rather commonplace to say that we learn through our errors. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, so to speak.
And putting consciousness to undesirable activities in order to no longer do them. I think that that's part of the idea of tshuva as well, that we turn away from doing things that we have done that were not desirable or sinful. And
So
that,
Judy, can you elaborate a little bit, Judy, about why you like it so much?
because I've been a bad girl.
That's of course not what I was implying.
Is that what you were thinking?
Chas v'shalom.
No. Yeah, no. For all of the inconsistencies in my earlier youth, you know, to know that I'm not doing them anymore.
Mm.
Yeah, the struggle of wrestling with one's demons.
Can't hear
Sorry,
you.
I can hear someone speaking, but it's very faint.
Oh, you're very faint.
Wrestling. Wait, one sec. Wrestling with one's demons. It's a struggle, and not everyone who wrestles with their demons comes on top. So especially if you come up, if you manage to come on top, it's something holy about that.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. That's put beautifully. And you know, maybe I'll read the last part. I've just made a paragraph break. When a person arrives at this light, ha'atzum, this great light, az shebo kol zedonotav bilti yotzim me'omek yediat Hashem, when one understands that all of one's faults themselves emanate from the depths of God's knowledge, v'da'ato v'rotzono, and God's knowledge and God's will, hakol echad, it's the same thing. And since God actually desired whatever one's faults were, then everything becomes positive. Your good and your bad becomes positive as one, because that itself comes from God. And with that, one achieves atonement. So I guess I should say to you, Richard, as you know, you are my inspiration for bringing this tonight. Well, what do you think? You're already unmuted, so I see you're primed for it.
You know, I view this well through the lens of my own life. I don't regret. Let's put it this way: I have very few regrets of the life I've lived. I have lived a life in which there has been, from a Jewish point of view, and even sometimes, well, mostly from a Jewish point of view, lots and lots of sins. I didn't know anything about halacha until I was 40. I'm in the company of friends and people who probably know me. You may or may not know, I spent a certain part of my youth as a drug addict. All sorts of things. I have always looked at that as simply part of what made me who I am. And I guess, for better or for worse, I certainly know I'm not perfect, but as an artist, I use this to make art and to be who I am. And so this notion of the fact that God desired the good and the bad, I guess I came to this idea many years ago. So this feels right. I think, I struggle with other things, but this is not one of them. So I feel this is, yeah, I think, I'll tell you, can I just kind of, not going off subject, but just comment on something. I guess in a way, one of the things like that Judy said, she said, oh, quote, I've been a bad girl. And she said, I've done things not desirable or things that are sinful. I think I need to hear more about that. Not from you, Judy, but from the idea of, we all know we have things in our personality and in our actions that are not desirable. But are they sinful? And in a funny way, I'm kind of asking, well, what is sin? You know, I mean, Lord knows we've got 613 commandments, and we have probably thousands of rabbinic commandments, and all of which we do struggle to keep. And most of us, I would imagine, probably get a long way towards, in fact, keeping them. But that doesn't mean that all of our actions are desirable. And so where does tshuva fall out? Where does Yom Kippur fall out in that? When I approach God, and when I have to do a reckoning of myself on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, do I also actually have to say I'm striving for an actual perfection? Or what you said when we first started talking about this weeks ago, maybe at a certain point we have to accept who we are with our foibles and with our imperfections, our undesirabilities, but because at the end of the day, we make a life of it.
On that point, Richard, now let me share the following. Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of what we're talking about here has to do with acknowledging the things that have gone awry, and it's in the acknowledging them that they get raised, that they go to a different level. And the point is about the things that have been sinful or undesirable, or however you call it, and not having consciousness about them, then they don't have a chance to be of merit.
Right.
But when something is something that has gone astray and has been recognized as going astray and put back on path, that's a different situation than not recognizing it.
Right.
So the notion of consciousness is of utmost here, to my mind.
So what I want to share now, coming off of what both Richard and Judy have said, is a commentary on this piece by an Israeli thinker called Rav Shagar, who passed away about 10 years ago. Fascinating, very important thinker. From a short book of his on Teshuvah, and one chapter in that book is about Rav Tzadok, and I just want to share really one line of how he puts this. Again, I apologize for lack of translation, but I will translate it. You see the title of the chapter, you might notice, Richard, the top right, is Teshuvah Kabbalah Atzmit. Teshuvah as self-acceptance. Right, that's the sort of like 3-word summary he gives to Rav Tzadok's approach. Teshuvah as self-acceptance. So you see the bold line at the top. That's a quote from the piece that we just read. Kol ma shechata haya gam ken b'ratzon Hashem yitbarach. Anything in which one sinned was actually with God's will as well. And now Rav Shagar takes over and puts this in 20th, 21st century language. B'lashon acheret, in other words, well, that's probably too much. Hateshuvah hayna kabbalat atzmecha gam kachoteh. Teshuvah means acceptance of oneself, also as a sinner, or acceptance of oneself, also the more problematic parts of oneself. Mitoch ha'ara, through the realization, the illumination, shelo ani asiti et atzmi, that I didn't make myself, ela Hashem yitbarach. God made me. What does teshuvah mean? Teshuvah doesn't mean change, becoming something else. Teshuvah actually means acceptance of myself. And once I'm able to get to that point, acceptance of also the problematic parts of myself, also as part of what Hashem created. Haderech shaba mitgaber hachoteh al hakonflikt. The way in which the sinner, I also don't feel completely comfortable with that word, but that's what he's using. The way in which a sinner overcomes the conflict beino, between himself, ubein chayav, and his life, ועל חוסר שביעות הרצון שלו מעצמו, and the lack of satisfaction he has from himself, how does one overcome that conflict? Not by change, דווקא בקבלת עצמו כפי שהוא, but specifically through accepting of oneself as one is.
Well,
Yeah, Margie.
Well, I guess that kind of brings me back to, Judy touched on it a little bit. My initial reaction is that all of this, I assume, is predicated on the fact that we want to do better, that we're not just trying to rationalize our bad behavior, correct?
Well, Margie, I think it has to be,
Yes.
because otherwise that's such a gaping hole in the theory
Yes.
that what's the
Yes.
point?
Otherwise, it's basically like the devil made me do it and I take no responsibility.
Well, my problem is that he doesn't say that.
No, that's my point. I don't want it to be interpreted that way. And that was my question, is that if we look at it more, if you look at your life more as a whole picture of various deeds and things that you've accomplished, it should be viewed more as a balance of how many were good things and how many were a little off the derech. And you just kind of want to keep the balance in favor of the good deeds. Everybody goes off the derech. Everybody has their faults. Obviously, God maybe is trying to teach us something through those things about ourselves. And to look for our authentic selves, to me, is what tshuva is. And the goal for me is always to have a life. Certainly at the age that I am, I have a lot more behind me than ahead of me, and to be able to look at it as balanced more on good deeds.
Very, very, very nice. Thank you. Robert?
Well, I think that there are some fundamental ideas that come into play here that deal with this notion of self-acceptance as critical to teshuvah. And of course, one of those would be the question of Yetzer Hara and whether or not Yetzer HaTov even exists, as it's sometimes put. Because were it not for Yetzer Hara, the investigative about us, the experimental about us, who we are would not come to be as we self-actualize, to use a more modern term. So that the idea, I'm sorry, windows open and by the FDR Drive.
It's the sounds of downtown. No
Yes.
need to apologize.
It's been siren crazy today. That if we can't accept who we are, then we can't really be honest in our expression of how we exist and what we do in life.
Right. Very good. Very, very good. Well, so yes, Jeff.
I find this quite radical, and I'm uncomfortable with this entirely. I believe, of course, self-acceptance.
My students were apoplectic at this. They hated it.
I absolutely, I find it absurd, because everything I've learned about tshuva and the process of tshuva and the Rambam, it flies in its face. So I understand there are levels. You have to understand. I intentionally eat cheeseburgers every day. I know that it is a sin. I have self-awareness. I understand it's a terrible thing. If I consider myself a religious Jew, I cannot do that. Okay, I accept it. Of course, I know I'm doing it. Is it God's will? Am I going to be atoned automatically for that because I understand that? No, I cannot imagine that. I think there's a level of acceptance that's a level, but there's a B level too. There's a level of action. There's a level of change that one is required to say, I'm uncomfortable with eating cheeseburger. I understand that there's a problem here. It's a conflict, but I have to do something about it. I have an opportunity on this moment, these 10 days. I have an opportunity to do something different. I cannot accept that this is just God's will. Self-acceptance is one thing, but there's a need for going beyond that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's saying that. I think it's saying be aware of what they call, well, modern term, your shadow. And it doesn't mean that it gives you permission to, let's say if you have an issue, God knows, let's say it's anger. You accept that you have an issue with anger, but you say to yourself, well, God gave me, for whatever reason, to learn how to, it's a challenge, and I can sublimate it, or I can express it in other ways. So it is from God, but it doesn't mean I can go around yelling at everybody. And that's the way I interpret it anyways.
Can I just add? Can I add to that? I think that Joel's point is really well taken, because I also think that if your problem is anger, that can also be a very positive thing. You can have righteous anger.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a little bit what it's getting at.
I've actually found those excerpts some kind like reassuring, although I was also afraid of any consequences that like you can do whatever you want and then nothing is going to happen. But I think it maybe depends on what you're talking about, because the cheeseburger example is very clear, but there are so many other things that we talk and interpret things as good and bad, where things are not so clear. And knowing that in order to do better, I mean, you need to know that there maybe things are not so clear, and you need to discuss and within yourself and with other people. And then it helps like to know that, okay, maybe there is some inherent erring in the process.
Right. Well, friends, this is wonderful. Fantastic discussion. Richard, I hope I've fulfilled my obligation to you in terms of bringing this source as you asked.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And I'm happy to reflect at greater length on this another time, but it's very fascinating to see the difference in responses, very clear difference in responses between two different age demographics that I've done this with. And clearly what we learned from this is that Jeff is a 22-year-old.
In my heart.
After all, Jeff, you're only the second oldest here.
That's right. That's right.
At least at heart. Okay, so I want to share some music now. Ideally, if we can, 2 tracks, and love to sort of talk about them a little bit. And I'm going to share the videos and the sounds, and the videos have got English subtitles as well. And once they're finished, I can put up the actual song lyrics as well. Both of these songs are Israeli songs, which came out, I think, in either late March or early April of this year, in the first few weeks of COVID taking over our lives. Still to this day, many months later, they are probably still the most spiritually perceptive and piercing pieces of music or anything else that I have come across in this period, and they are both very much in my mind at the moment. So I'm going to share. I'm going to need to now share both the screen and the sound. Here's the first song. The first song is by a man called Hanan Ben Ari. Share computer sound, optimize screen sharing for video clip. I hope the connection is good enough. Let's do it.
כבר חשבנו ניצחנו הכל, מגדלים בשמיים בנינו, בן אדם, מי צריך בן אדם? לא יבוא עוד מבול בימינו, לעולם, לעולם לא ניפול, תעזוב, נסתדר בעצמנו, חכמים, נכונים וצודקים, וכלום לא נמצא מעלינו, עד שבאת והדבקת, ושיגעת והזכרת, ובלבלת והבהלת מיד. איך החזרת את השפיות, געגועים לבני אדם, פתאום שורפת הבדידות, כבר לא טסים מפה לשם, כל הפארקים נעולים, חתונות כמעט בלי איש, כמעט איבדנו את עצמנו, כמעט הפסקנו להרגיש. עוד מעט זה הכל ייגמר, ואני מבקש אם אפשר, שבבוקר אחרי שתלכי, לא נהיה שוב אותו דבר.
Wow. Really beautiful, huh?
What's the title of that song?
I've just shared the lyrics. Ga'aguim livnei adam. Longing, oh, sorry.
For people.
Longing for people. Let me just, sorry. Yeah. Ga'aguim livnei adam. So, you know, the theme, you know, we thought we had, right? We thought we knew everything. Mi tzarich ben adam. Who needs anyone? Lo yavo od mabul b'yameinu. No flood will come again in our time. And you taught us, COVID. You know, you taught us how little we can rely on ourselves, how much we need other people. Any thoughts, particularly on the words? People can see the lyrics, right? They're being shared.
It's quite interesting that there are so many references to more traditional texts, kind of buried within his lyric, which is entirely modern and can be understood on both a spiritual and a more pragmatic level as well.
Anything in particular which jumps out to you? I guess the flood, Migdal Bavel.
Migdalim and Yabul, Mabul, and what is it that infects us? Is it the person? Is it the virus? Is it, where does it come from?
Something that I find extremely interesting in it is the way in which he personifies the virus.
Yes.
Right? You know, something which is so difficult about the virus is it's not a human enemy, but he says, Ad Shabbat, Vehidbakt, Vishigat, you came, you infected us, you drove us mad, you know, it's a you. And, you know, the final one, the final stanza, אני מבקש אם אפשר שבבוקר אחרי שתלכי, the morning after you go. I mean, it's second person, singular, feminine. After you leave, you COVID, לא נהיה שוב אותו דבר. You know, we'll have had some teshuvah, right? We will have changed in some way.
It is somehow
in a way that this is the chiddush of the song, of personalizing, making the COVID into an individual, because it seems to me that it first of all changes the relationship, and it makes it both more possible to deal with, and then of course in its way more terrifying. It's an astounding song when considering what he does. And just really, oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, I don't know about all of, perhaps you're more musically attuned than I am, but I find it very difficult to get and appreciate a song on a first time listening to it. You know, I need to listen to it several times. But this one and the following one, the first time, just an immediate wow. And it's very much stayed with me. Margie, did you have your hand?
All right. Well, I was just going to add that when you were talking about the personification, that it's kind of a reversal of a literary device the other way around, which is often done in literature, where you have, biblically for sure, many of the people that we read about and learn about represent characteristics or represent things. And here you have a thing representing, you know, becoming personified. So it's just a little bit of a switch up.
That's really good.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Isn't there a deep internal conflict in the idea that the virus, which we find so off-putting and difficult to live with and live through, is nevertheless a part of creation in its greater sphere, and therefore we need to encounter it as having in its own peculiar way some kind of a stake in creation, even as we do as human beings.
And we aren't separate from that. We forget that we're not, that we are animals and we are part of nature and susceptible.
Right.
Beautiful. Okay, if you thought that was good, are you ready for an even more powerful one?
But before you go, it also relates to Ratzadik and Cigar that we just said. I mean, right?
Go on.
No, it relates deeply, because obviously this is going to change. This is changing, is going to change our entire world. So too, it is not just on the negative side, as it were, but this too is from the Rabbanu Shalom. I mean, if you look at it within this context, especially when you see it as a person.
It was like really confusing when you played it. I was like confused. It was not clear whether he was talking about a virus or about a person. And then in the end, when they were like, then he bugged and then like she got, and it was like, okay, now it's really about the virus. But it's like any other Israeli song where it's just like, Bad Baboker, okay, there are 100 songs like that, so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean that,
Yeah, I mean, certainly. You can find many like that. Okay, so if you thought that was powerful, are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, the following song came out, I think, a week after the first one. I think very shortly before Pesach. You'll see that, you know, if Hanan Ben Ari in the song that we saw is essentially talking about people and what COVID has made him realize about his need for other people. Ga'guim levnei Adam, he's missing other people. This second song by a very popular Israeli artist, Yishai Ribel, is instead a focus on what this means for God, what COVID teaches us about that aspect of our lives. So I can do the same again. Bit of a longer song, and I'll put up the lyrics afterwards, although it's also got translations during. Not too long.
בין תרומה לתצווה, יום הולדת קצת משונה, הכל רגיל כאן לכאורה, במה קל ואהבה, בין תצווה לכי תישא, אסתר פורים משתה שמחה, מי יחנה ומי יישא, ומי יישא בתוצאה, בין כי תישא לבי יקל, עולם מפסיק להתקהל, להשתתק, להסתגר, ישמעאל אדום וישראל, בין ויקל לפקודה, אין איש בעיר ובשדה, כבר אין מול מי להתנהל, לקבל. ומה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה? רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד. ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה? עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה, כתר מלוכה. בין פקודי לויקרא כולנו באותה סירה. אביב הגיע פסח בא ואיתו תקווה רבה שתקרא את רוע הגזרה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, כבר אין לנו כוחות יותר להתמודד, להילחם. ומה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה? רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד. ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה? עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה. ומה אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתרחקים ומתקרבים בכאב הזה? רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד. ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה? עד שניתן לך כתר מלוכה, כתר מלוכה. אתה רוצה שנבין מזה? איך מתנתקים ומתחברים אל הלב הזה? רוצה לחיות אותך ולא להיות לבד. ומה אתה רוצה שנלמד מזה? ואיך נדע להתאחד בפירוד הזה? שמע ישראל השם אחד ושמו אחד, אחד ושמו אחד.
Are you intentionally trying to upset us? No, but I think the whole thing is that it is the idea of being alone. The idea, I mean, I know for me as a single person and spending a lot of time being alone, this is something that we're learning from it.
Right. Right.
And how to call on Hashem because of it.
Yeah. Right. You know, if the personage, as it were, that was being addressed in the previous song is the virus, in this case, it's God. I found the what's it called? The technique of the difference between the parashiyot to be so profound. I mean, so powerful, right? Those, you know, there's no one who lived through them will ever forget them. The weirdness of those weeks where, you know, it was one of several news stories. The Democratic primary was also going on. It became more, and then it just took over. And the way, you know, right, you know, this gradual build-up. I recommend watching the full video of it afterwards. This was a different video because of the translation of the lyrics. Does anybody get the pun, by the way, like the key pun of the whole song?
About Esther and Histar.
That's one pun, but there's a more profound, there's a more central one. The song is called, I mean, it's funny, the song came out just before Pesach, but the truth is it's more of a Rosh Hashanah song. The song is called Keter Melucha. We crown God on Rosh Hashanah, Keter Melucha.
Isn't Corona a crown?
Exactly, coronation, right? The Hasidim call Rosh Hashanah Koronatsia Nacht, right? What do you want us to understand from this? You've given us this corona, you've given us this crown. Sorry, we want to live you, we want to be with you, not to be alone. But how can we give you this crown?
Well, as human beings, of course, we have to deal with our own limitations. And until we accept the sovereignty of God, Keter HaMelucha, we never will understand that we as human beings may have great aspirations, but we nevertheless remain limited by what it is within our power to achieve.
I think that, just a line which has been going round and round in my head, it was on Rosh Hashanah, and I'm sure it will be on Yom Kippur, is just the line from this song, Ma'ata rotzeh shenavin mizeh. Like, what do you want us to understand from this? God, what are we supposed to make of this period? What are supposed to be our thoughts? I will. I'll put in the chat. I think I'm going to upload in the chat the lyrics to the songs in a PDF file. So you will need to download the PDF file. When you do download the PDF file, if you hover over the link to the song, if you hover over the title to the song, you'll then be given a link to the videos of them, which if you want to look at it. So I've put that in the chat. People can download it right now. So the third and final part, which we're not going to squeeze into 5 minutes, rather we'll begin it and then people will carry on in their own time, is the following. And I guess this has sort of been the build-up to it, to sort of get you in the frame of mind. We'll end the Zoom at 6:30, but if people have time themselves, I recommend them carrying on with it by themselves. Many years ago, a teacher of mine at Gush at Har Etzion, a man called Rav Yaakov Meidan, used the following metaphor about the Yamim Noraim, about these days, which has stayed with me. He compared it to a wellness visit at a physician. And when you go for your checkup, you talk about the things you're worried about, right? My foot's hurting, my breathing's difficult, but you also talk about what's fine and what feels good, right? I'm seeing fine, I'm able to walk better than I was able to, this has improved. And Rav Meidan said that, this is really a way in which we should be thinking about this period. And I can't remember if he recommended this or if I took it from him, but the exercise we developed is as follows, and I really recommend everybody do it. Take a piece of paper, take a pen, sit by yourself, find 15 minutes on one side of the piece of paper to write down, we always say 5. 5 is an arbitrary number, can be 3, can be 6. 5 things that you feel you should work on. 5 things that haven't been so great. 5 things which perhaps you're not so pleased with. And once you've done that, turn over the page and do the opposite. 5 things that are actually going pretty well. 5 things you're pleased with, you're proud of. Perhaps they're just good in general, or perhaps specifically they've improved. And for both sides of the paper, these things could be a particular relationship with someone in your life, which is going great or not going so great. It could be a personality trait. which is your focus. It could be a particular part of one's ritual, one's mitzvah, observance, any of these things. Now, the exercise itself is very, very valuable. But what's also very important is what happens when you finish the exercise. Take the piece of paper and put it in your machzor, right, in your Yom Kippur prayer book. And during the parts of Yom Kippur, when you're standing there, perhaps during your Amidah, and you're not saying any words, you're in the zone, you look at the piece of paper, right? And on the one side, that is your tefillah. This is what you're asking for. This is what you're saying to Hashem, I'm gonna improve, I'm gonna work on. And then the other side, you also turn over, you look at and you say, Hashem, like these 5 things I'm pleased with, I'm proud of. And it also doesn't finish there. You leave it in your machzor. And then the following year, you do the exercise again, a new piece of paper, put it in your machzor. Following year again, for Yom Kippur exercise, new piece of paper in your machzor. And then you have a very profound, in some ways quite scary experience that I have about, I think, 10 or 11, I've been doing it for a while, pages in your machzor, which just in bullet point form constitute a spiritual diary of your years. It's amazing, and like I said, also scary to see, what's changed. What was I thinking of 10 years ago? What was on my mind then? Or what has moved? Or perhaps what hasn't moved, right? What's still on the list? And I think perhaps to bring it back to Rav Tzadok and perhaps to things we've talked about in earlier classes, this exercise captures the what I think is the Jewish notion that teshuvah is not a before and an after, right? It's not one moment, one blinding light, a sword on the road to Damascus. It's a process, it's a journey, right? It's something which continues. It's 6:29, so we'll finish it in a moment, but I recommend everyone sit and do the exercise now. I mean, I would say you can do it in the coming days prior to Yom Kippur, but there's no time like the present, and we're in the mindset. I'll conclude just with the following thought that which side of the paper you find easier to write, and which side you find harder to write, tells you a lot about yourself. You can really find that. Thank you very much, Robert, for that message. Like Jeff said at the start, this isn't the final one. This is the penultimate one. Back next week as well. But it's been lovely learning with everybody. I'm going to give my children their baths and their dinner. If you like, you're welcome to do this exercise and keep the Zoom on so that you're sort of together in your. If you want that, I'll leave that thought to all of you. But Yishar Koach, this was great, and everybody should have a very strong and meaningful Yom Kippur, and please God, should be a year which is easier for all of us. I think we all deserve it.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Gemar Tov.
Gemar Tov, everyone. I'll probably see a number of you over Yom Kippur.
A sweet
Thank
year.
you.
A very sweet.
Thank you, Amy.